Rick never lets us down. Rick has been doing a whole bunch this last month or so, but this article caught my eye, and I just want to read it because it's pretty recent. And if we get to just understanding what it represents, we can then place ourselves outside of this situation and say that this is what it is meant to be. The U.S.'s refusal to accept reality in Ukraine could get a lot of people killed. Insider Sasha Glazer, defense priorities. Amen. Well, just a little bit. There we go. U.S. officials, and this is President Joe Biden with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Uh, U.S. officials continue offering security assurances to Ukraine amid escalating Russian military pressure. Biden must honestly assess if it's worth starting a war over a territory with little significance to U.S. security. Sasha Glazer is a research associate at Defense Priorities. Research associate, excuse me. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken recently met with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba in Washington and declared that the U.S. commitment to Ukraine's security and territorial integrity is ironclad. The meeting between the two officials came as Moscow stationed 90,000 troops near the Ukrainian border, leading many to fear that a large-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine could be imminent. Ukraine has been mired in a war with Russia and Russian-backed separatists in the eastern Donbas region of the country since 2014. Blinken's comments are just the latest example of a top Biden administration official failing to accept the geopolitical reality of Ukraine. In September, President Joe Biden met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and reiterated that the United States remains firmly committed to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity in the face of Russian aggression. A joint statement released that A joint statement released after that meeting declared that the United States supports Ukraine's right to decide its own future foreign policy course free from outside interference, including with respect to Ukraine's aspiration to join NATO. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said the same time during a visit to Kiev in October. Said the same during a visit. There we go. These are Ukrainian soldiers, eastern Ukraine city of the Balsiv, I don't know how to say that, and the Donetsk region, Sergei Supinsky, and as you guys can see, got rifles, a little tank in the background. You don't know what's it's going. It's for real. It's for real for them. It's been real. I've met dudes from Ukraine who fought in that. Anyway, gonna break all that down. I'll break it down later. Is Biden really prepared to send young American men and women to fight and die over Ukraine? This kind of rhetoric from the Biden administration does not serve U.S. interests and counterproductively increase the risk of the United States being dragged into a war with Russia. By continuing to provide quasi-security guarantees to Ukraine, Washington is playing a dangerous game of escalation with Moscow. Russia's deployment of 90,000 troops near the Ukrainian border is likely Moscow calling Washington's bluff. The United States has provided $2.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine since hostilities broke out. Despite this significant investment, the war has continued because the underlying geopolitical causes of the conflict have not been addressed, namely Russia's concern that Ukraine will be granted NATO membership. Moscow fears Ukraine's accession into the alliance will result in U.S. and NATO troops stationed directly on Russia's border. Moscow views the prevention of this outcome as a vital strategic interest and will do whatever is necessary to achieve its objective, including direct military intervention in Ukraine. Indeed, Russian President Vladimir Putin has made it clear that NATO expansion in Ukraine would cross a red line. Crossing that red line risks a sudden Russian attack on Ukraine, which has the potential to escalate out of control. With Russia already at war in eastern Ukraine, adding Kiev to the alliance could result in catastrophe. NATO's collective defense clause could require the United States and all other NATO allies to militarily defend Ukraine. Given the risk of nuclear escalation, the Biden administration must honestly assess if it's worth starting World War III over a territory with little significance to overall U.S. security. And this is Russian landing ships and military vehicles during exercise in the OPOC in the ground of Crimea, April 2021. I think I told y'all about this, but we didn't get to see this picture. That's a nice picture. Look at that. Woo! I'm trying to tell y'all, they're ready to pull up on Ukraine. Like, what's popping? Okay, anyway, Ukraine don't want that funky business, man. Russia has proven that it is willing to bear significant monetary and human cost to prevent a Western-aligned Ukraine. Years of tough economic sanctions and the estimated loss of several hundred Russian soldiers has done little to change Russia's objective in Ukraine. Unlike Russia, the United States simply does not have strong enough interest in Ukraine worth risking a potential nuclear war over. Ending the conflict will require a comprehensive political settlement that takes Russia's geopolitical anxiety into account. One may not agree with Moscow's security concerns, however, it is necessary to address them in pursuit of a peaceful resolution. Such a settlement should see Ukraine's territorial sovereignty restored and position Ukraine as a neutral buffer state, neither aligned with Russia nor the West. A neutral Ukraine would not seek membership in NATO or any Russian security institution, nor would it allow either side to station military forces on its territory. Instead, this policy would reflect Ukraine's precarious geopolitical reality of being a large but relatively weak state situated between Russia and NATO Europe. It is natural to feel sympathy for Ukraine's unfortunate circumstances. Continued U.S. military aid and offering Ukraine false hopes that NATO will come to its defense only prolong the conflict and increase the risk of war between the United States and Russia. Working toward a realistic resolution in the form of a neutral and non-aligned Ukraine could provide an opportunity for the world's two largest nuclear powers to form a stable and predictable relationship. The Biden administration would be wise to reverse its current escalatory course with Russia and prevent a U.S.-Ukraine policy that actually increases U.S. security. Sasha Glazer is a research associate at Defense Priorities. He focuses on U.S. grand strategy, international security, and transatlantic relations. He holds a master's in international public affairs and a bachelor in international studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Obviously, he just don't want nothing to pop off. Me, I want it to pop off. I'm totally different from Sasha. I'm like, nah, fuck all that. Keep fucking around, okay? Look, right there. We end it right there. Because that's a beautiful thing to see. Let that be the case. I'm trying to tell y'all, man, RIC is not playing around. RIC is ready to do something. And I'm going to stand back in the cuts and wait to see what it is. You have no dog in this fight. You have no horse in this race, black people. Remember that. Stay up. And until next time.